This is StarTalk. I'm your host, Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist. I'm here with my co-host, Chuck Knight. Chuck, baby.
What's happening, Neil?
All right.
Yeah.
You know what we're going to talk about today?
I don't.
Okay, commercial spaceflight.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we haven't tackled that subject in a while. So what we want to do is bring in some expertise.
Absolutely.
To help. I know a little bit about it, but I'm not like in it.
Right.
I can talk about it like stratospherically.
Right.
Because in the last decade, there's been major advances in commercial aerospace.
Yeah. You got Elon Musk. You got Sir Richard Branson. You got the bald dude that's one day going to rule the entire world.
Yes. Billions of dollars.
Hey, Dutch, I hadn't thought about it. He could be a Bond villain. That's right.
Are you kidding me? There's never been a better candidate for a real-life Bond villain than Jeff Bezos. Okay? Like, you just see him, they're going to name him like Scorpion. That's going to be his new name,
It's me, Scorpion.
So, guess who we found? We found the one and only Lauren Lyons.
Wow.
Lauren Lyons, welcome to StarTalk.
Thank you.
So I was looking at your profile. Oh, my God. So in college, you majored in aerospace engineering. Is that right?
I did.
You did.
Wow.
And then you went on to study, was it business and government or something on top of that?
I did.
Right. You worked for Firefly Aerospace.
Yes.
And you were in the engineering leadership at Blue Origin. Mm-hmm. And the Blue Origin is Jeff Bezos.
That's Bezos.
And senior engineer and technical program manager at SpaceX.
Nice.
Ticking all the boxes.
That's all the boxes, man.
All the boxes. And while at SpaceX, you worked on Starlink.
Wow.
Which people complain about Starlink.
They do.
Do we blame you? We'll find out in a minute.
It's all my fault. No, it's definitely not.
We're going to totally find out if that's your fault. The Alpha rocket, Blue Moon, and the Falcon 9.
Wow.
We were just at
there.
Yeah, we were just
Falcon 9.
You're at the Booster Memorial.
We were at the Booster Memorial.
Oh, yeah, the Falcon 9. That's
Don't call it a memorial.
That's what it's called.
Oh, my God. What a morbid
Oh, no,
name.
monument.
Thank you.
Monument. Yeah.
Hey, big difference.
Yeah, good point. It was the first one we ever landed.
Yeah.
So no, she said not the first one ever flown. First one ever
Ever
landed.
landed.
No, ever landed softly.
Hence
Yes.
memorial. That's why you got to pour a little beer out of your old 800 for the boosters that aren't here.
Yeah, all the ones that gave their lives.
All the ones that came before.
It's true.
So that's right there. It's out in the open LA sky.
You can see it from the airplane when you're coming into LAX. You look out the left side of the plane, and there you see it every single time.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Well, it's interesting that she said that because that means the wind patterns over LAX hardly ever change. You just look out the left side, right? Because if wind patterns change, then you'd be looking out the right side, right? So what a statement about the regularity of air patterns.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Well, what did you do for the Falcon? You worked on the Falcon 9.
I worked so it was like the very first job I had at SpaceX. I came in being what they call a mission manager. Okay. And you're basically the systems engineer that's responsible for saying, hey, we're going to make sure that the customer's satellite, that the payload gets integrated onto the rocket safely. And so that's everything from managing all of the sort of integrated analysis that has to happen, like thermal analysis, mechanical structures analysis, down to actually being at the launch site.
So were all these launched from Cape Canaveral?
So no, Vandenberg Air Force Base, just a couple hours north of LA. That's where I had my very first launch campaign, my very first mission. But at the time, this is back in 2015, most of the launches were going out of the Cape, and we were launching out of Vandy maybe like once a year.
Vandy, get that?
Vandy.
First name basis.
Oh yeah.
Vandy. Yes. Okay. We're not at that level.
I know. I'm not nearly aerospacey enough to call it Vandy.
Okay. Well, we're with you though.
Okay.
Vandy. You're at Vandy.
Vandy. Yes. But
well, just to be clear,
yeah.
I think of Vandenberg, I think of Air Force Base.
Yes.
Is there a civil portion of that launch?
No. So you are on now it's the Space Force, but you are on the base. So you have to go through all the military checks. You got the little badge for the base. I didn't know
this is not just some side platform that you can launch.
No, absolutely not. You are on base.
Space.
Wow. Yes. As opposed to the Cape, there's the Kennedy Space Center side, and then there's the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station side. At least it was the last time I was doing launches, and so I don't know if that's changed, but you used to be able to go. You can go to the Kennedy side, or you can go to the Air Force side. But at Vandy, it's a working base. They have, Space Force.
Do you know the area code of Cape Canaveral?
I do not. What is it?
3, 2, 1. You didn't know that?
I think I should know that.
Yeah.
Like I totally should know that.
Should have known that.
Dialing those numbers.
Oh my God.
That's pretty cool, man.
3, 2, 1.
Nice.
I got to tell you, I want to say it's corny, but it's not.
It's not.
It's pretty
It's actually
great.
very cool.
It's very cool.
very cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
So tell me exactly. Okay, so the integration of the payload
Yes.
to the rocket service that you're providing.
Correct.
All right, and so you have to check for safety, or that it's not going to jiggle the thing out of operation.
All of those things. So basically, if someone says, I want to launch a satellite, and I'm talking like not those sort of missions where SpaceX throws 50 small satellites, but if someone comes with like a big satellite and they've paid, $1 billion or $100 million or $50 million for this thing, they show up.
I don't want you messing that up. That's
You
right.
can't mess it up.
Right.
So they hire people like me
Okay.
to be that kind of go-between.
So some of your compensation comes from the company that wants to launch the satellite because they need your assurance.
No, not necessarily. Sorry, let me be more clear. What happens is I was working for SpaceX, and you can't just have this customer show up and they're like, I want to talk to all the engineers, and I want to know if am I going to vibrate off the the attachment, and
Right, but they need to know what could harm their
Exactly.
precious payload
Yes.
based on the parameters of the launch.
Correct. And so what they do is they give you a set of requirements. They say, this is the trajectory I want to fly. These are the loads that the satellite can withstand. A series of things across the entire sort of spectrum.
Please affirm for me, is there no greater love of an engineer than a set of requirements?
No, actually, let me be real. So I come from like the commercial space world where requirements are obnoxious.
I was going to say.
I thought
So
you
for
guys.
you, it's the no green M&Ms in the green room. That's it's a pain in the
so I
ass.
thought the engineer loves being inventive with the constraints placed upon them from the outside. Is that not true?
So, there's a
Or is
way
that
to
just
overdo
mythology?
it.
Yeah.
I think in the aerospace.
Not when you're the person who has to actually make the mission work.
Yes.
When you're just somebody who's given the challenge, right, and you just want to design something, then it's great because who cares? Like, I want a stairway to nowhere, and I don't want to see any supports underneath of it. Oh, okay, that sounds awesome, right? But you tell a carpenter that, and he's like, F you, man. The hell is your problem, right?
So what are things? So it's vibration tolerance, acceleration, surely. What else?
Acoustics. And so you want to make sure that while the satellite's in there and as you're ascending with that rocket, you're not going to introduce all this acoustic noise.
Shake, rattle, and roll.
Exactly.
Because you could do harm.
So many things. Environmental controls, temperature, airflow. You want to make sure you don't get condensation, that you don't reach dew point inside of that fairing.
Right.
So now these specifications change for every single flight then?
Not necessarily. So
Okay.
the way...
Well, just a quick point. Your dew point is more likely to be hit in Florida, where the humidity is high.
Exactly. So you're constantly...
Remind us what dew point is.
It is the temperature at which water vapor will condense and become liquid
in the atmosphere.
And so imagine
It's a temperature that you drop to.
Yes.
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 Because above that, everything is
Everything
happily,
is exactly
happily it's happily
Making you
and
miserable.
it's gaseous.
Yes.
It's happily gaseous,
and,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just
Right.
make you,
And
make
it's
you
not going to
mad.
deposit. So the reason it becomes an issue is water in of itself. In some cases, if you have something that's not hermetically sealed, that obviously becomes a problem in cases where things are sensitive to that.
Right.
But even when you're not talking about electronics and things like that, where imagine you're in a situation or in this room and it's not super clean and there's particles in the air. There's particles all in this.
we don't have to imagine that.
Yeah, it's like
because it's happening right
it's
now.
everywhere, right?
I'm telling you, yeah.
And so now, if you reach dew point, that water catches those particles. So I worked on. Let me give you a specific example. I worked the first launch that I signed up to work on, which is the reason I went to SpaceX, was to launch TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite. Amazing.
That's one of my people.
Yes,
that's
that's
my
your-
people. That's one of
I
your
figured you
community.
love TESS.
Yeah,
that's-
TESS. We all love TESS. TESS was
Love
basically
TESS.
the follow-on to Kepler.
Right.
Yes.
The transiting exoplanet. These are planets orbiting other stars that pass in front of the host star and dim the star.
Right.
And so, it's adding to our catalog. We're
Nice.
rising through 6,000 exoplanets right now.
Oh, they're so
and growing.
cheap now.
amazing.
So cheap.
Okay, so
It's amazing. I love
you're in
TESS.
the club.
Oh, that's why I went. I was like, I want to launch this. I was like, I don't have the skills to contribute
so
to
you're
this
one of
mission,
us.
but I want to launch
You're
this
one of my
satellite.
people.
That's
Okay.
I love it.
Yeah, all right.
I love
Pretty cool,
it.
though.
Okay.
So TESS had 4
Now wait,
cameras.
do you ever
yeah.
when we discover an exoplanet, do you ever just take your phone and go, I did that.
Not anymore because it happens so often.
Yeah,
I know. It's happening every day now.
Exoplanet every couple of days. It's boring.
It's cheap and boring now, right? Okay.
Yeah, you're just like, just keep it up, TESS. Let's keep finding more and more and more. Yeah.
So
anyway, exactly what did you do?
TESS.
So TESS has 4 cameras that in the fairing, well, it's sitting inside of the fairing, which is the shroud over the payload. They're just looking straight up, and there were no covers on them or anything. And so imagine if you reach dew point and you got all of that particulate then settled down
inside
on those cameras. In the fairing.
On
those 4 upward-facing cameras.
Right.
You have some pissed off
one of the people that I
astrophysicists.
worked with, she used to tell the engineers who were like in charge of contamination control, she goes, if you mess this up, we won't find any aliens. No aliens.
Exactly.
So you got to make sure that you, and it became this.
That's a perfect plot for a movie for someone who doesn't want to find aliens.
Yes.
Right.
Make sure it does condense.
Keep it nice and dirty.
Nice and dirty.
Yeah.
So I'd forgotten
Can we get a lens wipe over here, guys?
And they were uncleanable on top of that too, because they were so delicate.
Yeah.
You couldn't clean them.
Oh.
Yeah, lenses are typically coated with anti-reflection. That might have different reasons, but in general, the lens is not just glass. There's stuff on top of it as well.
Wow.
And you start wiping it, you start wiping off the protective coating.
Damn.
Yeah.
That is
It's not protective coating. It prevents reflections of light. Because at every surface you cross, there's light that reflects back.
Right.
And that part some goes through. And there's a way to cancel out those reflections so that you have a perfectly transparent glass. And so, you don't want to rub that off.
Wow.
But I had not appreciated until you said it moments ago that when you hit dew point, it's not just water condensing.
Right.
The water's grabbing whatever
Any particulate that's in the
And
water.
then when that water evaporates, that stuff oftentimes get left behind. And it's just sitting there. Yeah.
So let me ask you, because
Did she finish? Finish.
Oh,
about
sorry.
TESS? Okay, so tell.
Yes.
So what happened with TESS? What did you do for TESS?
So I was, the role was called Mission Integration Engineer. And I was, when NASA came to us and they're just like, here's this crazy contamination control requirement, which is one of the strictest we've ever seen. It was my job to work with our engineers in-house to make sure that we were taking the precautions in terms of environmental control in the fairing, environmental control in the clean room in order to make that, to meet those requirements.
And where was TESS made?
TESS was a Goddard and MIT collaboration with, I think Goddard who made the bus? The bus
Goddard
was
Space
Orbital,
Flight Center.
yes. Goddard Space Flight Center
In
on the
Maryland.
science side.
Yeah.
Also, MIT made the cameras, and the spacecraft bus itself was made by Orbital ATK at the time, now Northrop Grumman.
So TESS is flying high right now. So
It's doing great.
Thank you for your service on that.
It was an honor.
when you're dealing with all of these highly sensitive apparatus, is there an insurance policy attached to this? Because
let's get to that. That's right. Yeah. So the risk factors, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Launch failures. Does someone get blamed for that? Or
Absolutely.
Or do you say, this is an occasion where we will learn a great deal?
You kind of have to do that last one anyway. Like it always is a learning, because if you knew it, you wouldn't have ended up in that situation. And so there's a ton of learning that happens in it. But I worked multiple launch failure investigations. I worked them at SpaceX, and I led the failure investigation for Firefly for our first rocket, which exploded in spectacular fashion on our very first launch, which is like not unheard of for the first launch to not be successful.
Right.
But they've had
Right, 'cause when rockets fail, they don't just sort of fall over.
No.
Yeah,
They're basically
spectacular.
bombs. Right.
It's generally spectacular.
It's you're reminded that when you're taking off, it's a highly controlled bomb.
Right.
You're in control of the bomb. If you're not in control of the bomb, it's an explosion.
Yes, exactly.
So how do you get data from that if the evidence has been blowed up?
So interestingly, it's rarely completely gone. Even in the case of the mission, it was F920, I believe it was, the 20th Falcon 9 flight, where we lost Dragon over the water.
Right.
We still, even though everything exploded and ended up in the ocean, we still were able to collect some data, some physical evidence. But
just to get the parts right, so that the Falcon is the booster.
Correct.
And the Dragon is
the spacecraft.
The spacecraft on top.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So all these names, they're just bandied about.
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that we got the
let's explain
sequence.
them.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm old school. The Saturn V rocket, on top of that was the command module, right? So, and that had a name.
Yes.
Right. So
yes.
this is the corresponding
good point. Yes.
Argument here, I guess. Okay, so I interrupted. Go on.
No, that was a good clarification. So there's the physical evidence side, but I will speak to early flights, like early missions. For when you first build a vehicle, you want to collect as much data as you possibly can. So I was, speaking on the Firefly incident, by the way, they've had 100% mission success for the next missions that they had. They killed it. But that first one...
That's a good thing.
And a good thing. I was like, crushed it. Are there any like positive words that don't mean like destroy? They crushed it. They killed it.
They killed it. That meant it was a success.
Knocked it out of the park. Everything's so violent.
Yeah, I'm an old man on the porch. These youngins, what vocabulary?
They did good.
Right.
Okay.
So what you do is you end up, and it's not even just the early missions, definitely on the early missions, but even later on, what you do is you instrument the heck out of those vehicles. Like you've got thermocouples, you've got accelerometers, you've got every kind of instrumentation that you can think of.
Right.
Yes.
Just picking up
and
all the data.
There are those who, there are a lot of folks, for example, there's a lot of launch vehicles out there, by the way, and other spacecraft that don't really have a lot of like cameras on their vehicles. At SpaceX, we had them everywhere. But a lot of people didn't have them because they believe that data is more useful. I personally am of the opinion that both are incredibly useful. And the data, I probably prefer data over video, frankly. But if you've got video, like it's tremendously helpful, even just for correlating to an event that happens during an accident or anomaly. So yeah, even if you don't have all the physical evidence,
code word
for
messed
effed up.
Yeah, something anomalous.
Yes, an anomalous.
Yes,
anomalous condition.
The word it's mishap.
A mishap.
Yes, this is the word the FAA uses.
That's
mishap.
A mishap. Well, what a lovely euphemism. I believe we've had a terrible mishap. I'm going to need a new pair of underwear. Yes.
Well, if it's a really bad thing that happens, there's like levels of bad with these investigations. If it's really bad, it's an accident.
Wow.
Yeah. So a mishap.
Okay.
I've done mishap investigations.
Mishaps happen.
Just dust it under the rug.
Right.
Keep going.
Right. It's like, you just, these are the ones the FAA will allow the company to investigate.
An accident follows you your entire life.
But a mishap.
You can get rid of.
Okay. Before we go to our fan base set of questions, because we're going to turn this to a little bit of a cosmic queries, so I want to get from you, I just want to help our audience and us understand the fundamental differences between the government putting things into space, into orbit, and private enterprise.
Yeah.
Do you have a different tolerance for error than the government does?
It's a complex question because it depends on how error or failure is defined.
Okay, so $100 million.
Yes.
Down a tube for whatever reason. The government can say, all right, we're going to try that, not to have that happen again, but an investor doesn't lose money.
Gotcha. Yeah, and in some cases, $100 million is all you got. And if you're in a private enterprise and you have a failure like that, you could be done. You could be completely done.
Oh, that's the end of your...
It's the end of your company. Your company
literally
is gone.
Yeah.
That's your runway because
it.
you don't have another $100 million in the bank that you could go, or you can't go to Congress and apologize.
Okay, so there could have been 10 other launch companies that came and went for just those reasons.
There were.
Okay.
There were a lot of people had tried this stuff. And, Elon likes to say all the time, he got really close. Like that last Falcon 1 launch, that company would have gone, SpaceX would have gone bankrupt had that one not been successful.
The one that worked.
The one that worked.
That's on display.
Right.
Falcon 1.
Oh, Falcon 1.
Falcon 1, yeah. And so he tells that story all the time. I mean, it was down to the wire.
So this makes sense because the people who are the leaders in the industry are all billionaires.
Depends on how you define leader, but there are some that are billionaires, and there are many, many more who are not. And the billionaires are the ones who get all the attention.
Okay.
They get all the attention.
All right.
They're the ones people love to talk about.
That's fair.
But there's a lot of people executing in the corners.
Okay.
Crushing it.
Okay. All right, good.
Right.
In the corners, when people don't know their names, people don't know what's going on. And I think that's kind of one of the things that always kind of frustrates me a little bit with the billionaire space race narrative. By the way, I'm not one of these people who's going to be like, this is all false. We should not criticize this. I don't fall into that camp. I think there's some valid.
You're safe here. You're in a safe space.
Yeah, believe me.
And I'm not going to be those people that just defends anybody just because I'm in the space.
Right.
But I do think that one of the things that kind of frustrates me about that narrative is it kind of ignores the fact. Let's just take, Blue Origin, for example. I believe there's like 11,000 people there at this point.
Right.
Either 7 or 11, I don't know. Some lot of people.
A lot of people.
And whatever, criticism you want to hurl at Jeff, like, he is but this much of that company. That company is made out of, 11,000 hardworking people who care very deeply about the work that they're doing. Yeah. And
let's be honest, just because you're the pockets of an organization doesn't mean that you are the impetus for its success.
Correct.
Because, I'm sorry, the guy may be smart, and PayPal was wonderful and all.
Oh, you're talking about Elon
I'm
here.
Sorry, both of them, all three of them.
Yeah.
But I defy any of them to sit down and tell me how to put something into space. Can they really do that? Seriously.
At least one of them can give you a little bit of a run for your money. I've been pleasantly surprised by how much Elon can go head to head on a lot of things.
Wow.
Yeah, he studies pretty hard and he's pretty read up on stuff.
Okay.
And he's at least he was in the past. I'm not there now, so I don't know how hands-on he is anymore, but he was quite hands-on. And so
after what he did with Twitter, I'm a little scared.
But yeah, it's to your point,
That's a different kind of, that's social engineering.
That's
different from
different.
But to your point, it's these hardworking engineers who are there, pulling the all-nighters.
I've always felt that when people say, "Oh, Neil Armstrong was the first person on the moon," and I say, "It was Neil Armstrong plus 10,000 scientists and engineers."
Exactly.
I say that all the time.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Plus, a little known fact: the mission patch for Apollo 11 did not contain the names of the astronauts.
It didn't.
No, it did not. It's just the Eagle coming for touchdown on the moon.
I love that.
There was a nice touch. I
love that.
I don't
the Yankees. They don't put the names on the back of the jerseys.
But no, they didn't. Right,
Yeah.
right.
Wow.
Well, they were the first to ever have numbers on their jerseys.
Right.
So that was just the batting sequence.
Exactly.
All right, let's go to see what our fan base has to say.
All right, let's do
All
it.
right.
This is Cameron Bellamy, and Cameron says, "Greetings from Baltimore to Neil, Chuck, and Lauren. What are a few of the current and biggest unsolved challenges in the field of human commercial space travel?"
That's a good question. I think the biggest one, the single biggest one, is expensive. It's incredibly
But
costly.
I thought that's the whole point of SpaceX, trying to drop the price. So they haven't dropped it enough, is what you're saying.
Not remotely so. So it depends on, so if you want to talk about, making it accessible to not just governments or billionaires.
Right.
We got a ways to go. And
Can you quantify ways?
So I will say.
Okay, so Elon put some people in orbit.
Yes.
All right. That was how much per person?
So I believe NASA pays $88 million a seat or something like
That's
that.
$100 million.
Well, that's less than a lot of other options. The other two options that they have.
Okay.
I believe so, and I
So
can't
from a
remember.
billionaire, that's okay, but most people aren't that. So
Yes.
what price do we have to get that down to? And will it ever get there, or is it going to asymptote at some level that no one is ever going to reach, and that's going to end the whole effort?
I think we'll get there, and the way that cost comes down is not just through reusing boosters. I mean, that helps for sure, but it's still not where it needs to be. Falcon 9 can only do so much in its current. I mean, it does what it does. Well, this is why they're developing Starship.
So it helps it get to orbit, and then it comes back.
Correct.
Yes.
But so this is why they have Starship, right? You got to push those boundaries. And so what Starship enables is to drastically reduce that cost for launch. And so
Is it because of how many people?
So
The cost per person.
the cost per person, the cost per launch, the cost of materials, the cost of fuel, everything. They're dropping those costs, and it's such a large vehicle as well that it can carry much more mass to orbit. So currently, the way you think about mass, for every sort of kilogram that you put in space, that's what we talk about cost of launch. You think about it.
Is 2.2 pounds.
Thank you.
You
Thank
got
you
that
for that.
one?
I used to sell drugs, so I'm very much aware. Very much aware.
Okay, good.
You sold kilograms of drugs? Dang.
It's high roller.
High
kilo.
roller.
Hey, we don't do the small stuff.
Yeah, wow.
So you have numbers there for
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So the Saturn V, it cost $54,000 per kilogram launched to low Earth orbit.
Wow.
Okay.
The space shuttle was $65,000
Even more,
per
even
kilogram.
And that was supposed to bring costs down.
I know, that did not work
That
out.
did not work out.
There's your government working for you.
Yeah. So then you've got the Falcon 9, which is currently at, if you're going to get a dedicated Falcon 9 just to yourself, $2,600 per kilogram.
That's half.
So it's
26,000.
2,600.
2,600? That's huge.
Okay, that's a
Yeah.
factor of 20.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
A factor of 20 from the Saturn V.
It's amazing.
Okay. All right. All right. So that brings in many more customers
Yes.
who would have orbital things they want to do.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. And so, like right now, if you wanted to launch,
So that's why, Chuck, how many kilograms do you weigh?
Let me see.
What would it cost to throw your ass into orbit?
Let me see. Put my fat behind in orbit. What would it cost?
Well, are humans considered payload?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So do you tell people to lose weight before they go into orbit? I mean, what?
They tend to be pretty fit, these astronauts, and so
Right. Low
so
fat
yeah,
content.
they tend to be pretty fit. When we started really thinking about human spaceflight and not just kind of circling the Earth because it's like great, cool,
Boldly going where
like to
hundreds have
actually
gone before.
go further,
someplace.
right? I mean, I don't know the exact numbers on this, but you got to keep these people alive. They need food, they need water, they need air. They
I
don't
like the way
got that
she
in
said
space.
You have to keep the people alive.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's expensive, and so and it requires a lot of mass. So if you're going to carry
Mass beyond you.
mass beyond you, so the environmental control systems and life support systems, there's a lot of effort. So getting back to that question, there's a lot of effort that's going into figuring out how to have closed loop systems,
Right.
and so that you don't have to have all these excess consumables.
That's
that
code
you
for
take
drinking
with
your
you.
own pee.
That's of course.
Just to
Yes,
be clear.
Of course it is.
precisely.
Of course it
Yeah.
is.
And growing plants,
Growing
and then
plants
using the
on-
fertilizer
right.
from yourself
Of
to like
course,
grow
right.
the next ones.
We saw that movie.
Poop potatoes.
Yes,
Everybody loves
you
poop
did a whole thing
potatoes.
on this.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So, figuring out that question as well, and regardless, like you're gonna still need to bring consumables with you, so it's gonna require mass, and you need a big rocket, but you also need that rocket to not be crazy expensive, right? And so that's that sort of balance that kind of needs to happen to make that work. And then the other thing
So
that
it's
I
just a
think
matter of time?
I think it's a matter of time. I really
if
do.
we showed the Falcon 9 to the Wright brothers, they would have an aneurysm,
And
right?
die on the spot.
On the spot, right?
Yeah.
Right. So how far away is this?
I think we are.
Given what we've accomplished thus far.
So, I mean, what is it? Like later on this decade, SpaceX is supposed to be launching our astronauts to the moon. So that's going to happen. They've actually sold the first Starship launch to a guy named Jared Isaacman, and Jared is supposed to launch himself and a crew of at least three others, I believe, with him.
For what? Just to go?
They just going.
Well,
They
Jared,
just
don't
go.
come back. That's what I'm saying.
Well, he's also doing like a bunch of like research and stuff like that,
Oh,
and
okay,
science
that's
and things
cool.
too,
Yeah.
right?
What's
I
the
thought it was a
fun-
joyride.
Wait,
No.
it's not fundamentally different from the dawn of aviation, where the only people who flew in an airplane
We're very
rich.
wealthy.
It's so true.
And
Yes.
they did it for just the thrill of
Just for the
doing
thrill,
it.
and
Yeah.
some of them died.
Yeah, some of them did.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's even
And
a Cole Porter. There's a
and
Cole Porter.
nobody was mad.
No.
Nobody was mad.
cared.
In early aviation, when those planes went down and everybody on the ground knew that there was nothing but rich people who were going for a joyride, they were just like, that seemed like a problem taking care of itself.
And that was like around the time of the Depression, too.
It was.
Yeah, the
It
30s.
absolutely- That's what
Oh,
I'm
it was
talking
like
about.
politically
That is
interesting
what
around
I'm
that
talking
time.
about.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
So yeah, I think those folks that are able to pay for these experiences, we're just not quite at a point yet. Everyone's like, oh, the space economy is so big, it's doing great. And it's just like, is it? Because these markets don't actually exist yet.
Right.
There isn't a market that exists that allows this sort of real economy to come up. And so similar to when you think about the arts and engineering and technical things back in the 1600s and even before then, who used to pay for that stuff?
That's true.
It was rich
still
people.
Rich people.
Yeah.
And so this is just the
So
same.
shouldn't you have any unique discomfort with this fact?
Right.
This is how it is.
It's just how it works.
And thank God that there are people who have this hunger to do this crazy stuff.
Or capitalism.
Yeah,
God, or
there's that.
capitalism.
There's that.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
mercantilism, as it was with the Medici.
Yeah.
So give me. I want you to be quantitative. So
Yeah.
how many years from now? 10 years? 20 years? Where a family can save up and instead of we going to go to Disney
20.
World, or are we going to go to space?
I
Get
think
your
it's
ass to
20.
Mars.
I think it's 20.
20 years?
Maybe 15, but probably 20.
That's really close.
That's very
It's pretty
encouraging.
close.
That's really
And I don't
close.
mean to Mars. I mean, like, go
Yeah,
and
well,
do a
yeah,
little circle
definitely.
around.
Right,
There's also a company, there's two companies. There's Worldview and Space Perspective, and they're doing these balloon flights. And those are supposed to be coming on in the next couple of
Balloon
years.
launches don't have the same appeal.
They
as
do
rocket
not, but
launch.
it's way more chill. You're not on a bomb. You just kind of like slowly
Floating
go
up.
up.
Still,
and-
I remember Oz floating away on his balloon. That was just not as exciting as a rocket launch. I'm
Right.
sorry. I'm sorry.
You wouldn't do it though?
What, in a balloon?
Would you do it?
I don't know. I mean,
Up and away.
yeah, I don't know.
Am I
Probably. I probably would.
Yeah.
It can't. It's not like a rocket.
Wouldn't you
Rockets
like
blow up.
to ride?
Exactly. Now, what
Rockets
if you
blow
could
up.
get the orbital perspective? Like
Right.
you could get that sort of overview effect without being on a bomb.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea.
Okay.
I don't know.
No,
It
no,
takes a little longer.
I did the math
though.
on the balloon.
Yeah. What do you think?
No, it goes to a schoolroom globe.
Yeah.
It goes up the height of the thickness of a dime. So I'm not counting that as an overview. That's
Okay.
Okay, no, you can't see national borders, but neither can you from an airplane. Okay, so I'm not me and balloons. I'm not,
so
Okay,
you
I
don't
got
think
you.
I
it's
did the
it.
math on that. Right.
Got it. Okay.
Chuck, give me another one.
All right, here we go. This is
We
Alex.
luxuriously answered that question.
We did, but who cares? This is Alexander Harvey. And he says, hello there, Dr. Tyson and Chuck. This is Alex from Denver, Colorado, reporting in. What are the biggest limitations on constructing, now listen, because he's going out there, a floating human colony in space? And how might we overcome those limitations? My man is like, I want a colony
he wants to
living
go.
in space.
I wouldn't use the word colony.
Well, colony is different from colonize.
That's true.
It's true,
That's a
but
subtle
it's
thing.
still like it's too subtle.
It still carries some
and-
baggage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a word with baggage.
Right.
Yes.
So there are two kinds of colonies we can think of. One is like on a surface of some place,
Right.
like the moon.
Yeah.
That sounded like a free floating colony.
He wants
He wants an O'Neill cylinder.
Yeah,
Right.
Ooh, O'Neill cylinder. Ooh.
Yeah.
So Gerard O'Neill, he had fantastical ideas about our future living in space with farms and
Right.
and
Yeah.
So you said Gerard. What's a Gerard cylinder?
Or the
O'Neill
O'Neill
cylinder.
cylinder. Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert on these things, but like these sort of self-contained environments that are just in space where people are living and thriving and working, and there's grass and water, and there's these
Elysium.
closed ecosystems.
If you saw the movie Elysium.
Elysium, but hopefully without the classism, just like a little.
Okay.
Exactly.
all right.
Yeah,
That's true.
that would be great.
But-
Yeah, it needs to be rotating, so
Yes.
you have
And
a
that's-
centrifugal
So you have
gravity.
yes, and you can have gravity. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So
Okay, so how far away are we from that? 'Cause
we're
he's in-
very, 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 very far from
far.
that. Like, okay, so to the question of what do we need to do to get there?
Yeah.
So first, in the last few years, there have been a number of new companies that have spun up in order to build commercial space stations. We currently don't have any of those, and so let's start there. Like, let's
So the
start.
current space stations are national,
Correct.
like Chinese and,
Yes.
and the ISS. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
And NASA has already said, we'd like to partner with commercial industry to do this. So they have done some sort of small awards to some companies to do some early design work on that. And so there are companies out there that are trying to do this. But you know what? These things cost billions of dollars a year just to operate. And the logistics money
Right,
associated.
pay or play. This is a
It's crazy. And
Yeah.
and then just like in one of the biggest chunks of that cost is just in the process of getting things and people to and from it. So launch costs needs to come down.
Right.
Additionally, you start thinking about it and you're like, really? Are we going to just build these massive structures with stuff from Earth? That's silly. So then we have to start thinking, how can we actually get materials from the moon, from asteroids? How can we assemble
or just
materials?
print them.
Print them, bring them raw
well, you need
material.
the raw
from-
material.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And assemble things in space. So there's this whole sort of field that's come
So
about.
it's cheaper to move something from an asteroid to your space
not,
platform
Not yet.
than from Earth to the platform.
The idea will be once we figure out the whole asteroid mining thing,
Right,
which
right.
is still quite a ways away,
Right.
then that starts to make more sense for these mega structures.
Because it
And-
costs nothing to launch from an asteroid. It's got hardly
You're
any
already
gravity.
out there.
Right.
Right, and it's got a lot of raw
A
materials.
lot of raw material.
So just I'll get it from an asteroid. Forget Earth.
Yes.
Right.
That.
Yes.
Wow.
Okay.
So that would unlock like in space manufacturing using materials
What's
from
the
in
company
space.
that's trying to
which
do
one?
that?
There's a few. Yeah. Which one are you thinking?
The one that wanted to make money mining asteroids.
There's a company called Astroforge.
That's not what I was thinking of.
There's
Keep
one
going.
called Carmen Plus.
Keep going.
There's A couple that no longer exist.
Maybe.
Lovely people, but they.
Space Resources. That was a company.
There's Planetary Resources.
Maybe that one.
And then there was Deep Space Industries.
Okay.
These were two that founded by wonderful humans.
These are
and
dreamers.
They were dreamers. They were just a little early, I think. And now that resurgence is coming back, and yeah.
All right. So again, we're in the decades, not centuries.
We are in the decades. Well, in the case of O'Neill cylinders, I don't know, man. That's one where there's a lot that needs to happen to make that real.
Well, you know, what's going to help that along is that we're going to need them. You know, see, that's the problem. The way we're treating the planet, you know, we're going to actually need to go someplace for a little while to allow Earth to recover.
Or we could stop messing it up.
Well, we can. I mean, listen.
Would you go to one and live there and leave Earth behind? One of these O'Neill cylinders?
Depends on how nice it is. If it was a two-way ticket.
Let's say it's the Ritz-Carlton of O'Neill cylinders.
Oh, dang. And what is it orbiting?
Oh my God. Damn, she's getting all particular.
She still has requirements.
Are we in the Saturn system? Like, where are we? Wouldn't that be cool?
That'd be beautiful.
Wouldn't it be beautiful? Like that scene in Interstellar? I cry whenever I see it. When he gets there and there's like the rings of Saturn.
The rings of Saturn.
Oh, my God. It's so beautiful. Oh, my God.
Nice.
So I'm getting all like,
all right.
thinking about
Getting
it.
verklempt.
Yes.
Okay. Give me another one.
Want to move on?
Chuck.
Let's, here we go.
Time for just a couple more.
This is Alex Pilon, and he says, hello, Chuck, and hello, Neil. Hello, Lauren. This is Alex Pilon. Chuck, it's pronounced, and then he spells Alex phonetically.
Because Chuck has problems pronouncing people's names.
Not that bad. My problems aren't that bad.
And not with Alex. Right,
Yeah,
right.
with Alex. Like,
Alex.
Alex. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, he says, hey, calling here from Bethesda, Maryland. Thanks for taking my question. Lauren, what new and exciting technology are you most excited about that we don't know about?
Ooh.
Is it in propulsion? Is it in material science?
I am really excited for, and it's gonna. You already know about it though. People already know about
maybe
it, but
not
it's just
everybody.
on
Try
it.
it.
Is fully reusable rockets. I'm talking the first stage, the second stage, and that they can fly once a day.
Stem to stern.
Just
up and back,
airplane-like
like the way we take
reusability.
planes.
Exactly.
Like when you get off your plane isn't sitting there waiting for you to come back. It goes on to another destination, or it goes back to where it came from, taking more people back there.
Yeah, but Chuck, I can fly a plane to a destination, and it can refuel at that destination. So if you're going to have a rocket that's empty of its fuel when it gets to where it's going, you need a filling station on orbit.
So that's another thing that gets me excited, is exactly that. So the way Starship works, as an example, they can launch all that mass to orbit, but if they're going to get to the moon, they need to refuel on the way there. So refueling technology, I think, enables us to go deeper and deeper into the solar system.
So you need cargo ships carrying fuel to depots.
Yes, you need fuel depots, absolutely.
Which sounds weird, but somebody had to do that when cars were invented.
Exactly.
They're still doing it.
And they're still doing it. I want to drive there.
Yeah.
Well, there's no gas station. Well,
Yeah.
somebody says, I'm going to put a gas station, so you will drive there and you pay
And
me.
there's a
That's
company
exactly
called Orbit Fab. Their tagline is gas stations in space. And that's entirely what they're trying to
That's
do.
all they're trying to do.
It's a thing.
Industry community.
Yes, Northrop Grumman is working on this. There's a company called Astroscale that's working on this. SpaceX. There's so many companies. It's a key part of the architecture if you really want to go further.
want to go further.
I'm glad
you
you
have
all
to-
are doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
This is pretty exciting, actually.
While the rest of us are fighting over the meaning of words on our social media postings.
Yes.
Right. There's some people still thinking about a future.
Yeah.
No, it's incredible. And then to even push that even further, because I'm a big fan. I am obsessed with my favorite thing in the solar system is Europa. Obsessed. Cannot wait for Europa Clipper. But I would love.
Clipper, that's not going to dig, is it? It's just going to orbit?
No, it's just an orbiter. It's going to do flybys, so it's orbiting Jupiter.
Why can't you just not wait until the one that digs?
Ask NASA that question, and it's come money.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it. I think it's on paper, but it's nothing funded to do that.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, they were kind of working on a study, and it just didn't quite make it to the next level.
Europa is the one that's got icy outer surface
that you have,
and
an ocean
Yes.
underneath.
Global liquid
Same with
water.
Enceladus, but I
Enceladus.
thought there's a plan to fly through some of the plumes of Enceladus.
There
if I
is,
remember.
and with Europa Clipper is going to fly through. But we believe that there are plumes on Europa as well. Not the 101 crazy things that you get out of Enceladus, but Europa we believe there are plumes, and so my understanding is Clipper is going to go through and kind of taste the plumes and look for organics.
Do some chemical analysis of that. Very nice.
Yeah.
Cosmic taste the rainbow.
Cosmic taste. Yes, exactly.
So that's something we can all imagine, okay?
Yes.
We want to know something secret that nobody knows, that you know because you're in the biz. That when you reveal it, we say, whoa.
For me, I'm just so interested in the going further question. We have to be able to go further. And right now we can't. And
we as people. Because we have robots out the edge of the solar system.
Yeah. And what are you going to do if somebody is 30, 40, 50 years together? It's nuts, right? So actually, I'm a part of the X Prizes Brain Trust for the space sector that we've got, where we think up X Prizes that are space related. And one of the finalists this year.
So X Prizes are you put up money for an audacious goal,
right?
Yes.
And then everybody puts in their money to do it to hope to get the prize.
Right.
And the total amount of money everyone spends is more than the prize money that someone wins. Exactly. And so you get the benefit of this creativity.
Yeah,
and so you're on a committee to decide this?
I am. For the space or
the space sector.
For space sector, right.
Yeah, because X Prize, there's biology.
Right,
fields,
healthcare, education, all these things. And so one of the finalists this year was this idea, it was called Sleep Like a Teenager. And this biologist brought it forward, and she's a medical doctor, and she said, hey, we need to learn from the animals about hibernation. And hibernation doesn't necessarily mean going into the little pod and, being knocked out for, 100 years.
Like in the movies.
Like in the movies. Hibernation could be simply just lowering your metabolic rate to the point where you don't consume as many resources. That's what animal hibernation is. Sometimes bears are actually awake in there. They're just moving a little slower. Right? And so how can you lower a human's metabolic rate enough such that they, to that point about mass, require fewer consumables? What if they were only working, maybe 3 to 6 hours during the day and they slept the rest of the time? That could actually work. And so maybe that answers this question of, it's not something that a lot of people are talking about, but it's something
a feature that would be folded into this exercise. So this is for long duration missions.
For long duration spaceflight.
Okay, so my reply to that question is invent a wormhole. Then all missions take minutes.
Oh my God! Did you just guess the secret technology that no?
This is what she was not going to talk about.
Yes. If he had that secret, believe me, we would not be sitting here. He'd be trying to share it with the world, and I'd be like, "No, sir, we got to make this money. I must share this with the world, Chuck. It will revolutionize travel."
A last fast question about the Falcon 9, because we were visiting the one out on the street corner. I noticed nine rocket motor nozzles at the bottom. Is that why it's called Falcon 9?
That is why it's called Falcon 9.
So did Falcon 1 only have one nozzle?
It did have one nozzle.
Okay.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Just verifying.
I'm waiting for Falcon 50.
I'm also not convinced that it was called Falcon 1 because it had one. It was probably just because it was the first one.
It kind of makes sense.
Just checking that.
Yeah.
So what's in store for you? What are your? I understand you're moving to Paris. What's that about?
Yeah.
We want you here.
Oh, I come back and forth all the time.
No, here. We need you.
Are you working with the French space program over there?
No, I'm just doing my thing. So I've been consulting with U.S. companies, and so
just doing it from.
So they come to you to get what from you?
So my expertise.
You took that pandemic remote working thing too seriously. You can work from anywhere.
So you have
France it shall be.
These multiple companies on your resume now.
Yes.
With all this various experience,
right.
And now you have turned that into an independent operation.
Yes.
And you're CEO of this operation.
I am.
And what's it called?
It's called VDOT Labs.
VDOT Labs.
VDOT for acceleration, second.
It's
very nerd. See, look at you. But you got it there. Because some people just look at me like Virginia Department of Transportation, and
VDOT,
that's not what that means.
Okay. So, the rate of change of your position,
right,
is called your speed.
Okay. Right.
And your velocity. The rate of change of your velocity is called your acceleration.
Okay.
Isaac Newton developed a system of nomenclature and notation to represent the rate of change of your position relative to time and the rate of change of your velocity relative to time. And it's called DOT. Okay.
Dot.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Okay. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So v dot is basically the first derivative of your velocity, which is your acceleration.
Right.
And you only really go in places if you can accelerate.
Right.
Just to be
Yes. And that's what we do.
clear. That's so geeky.
We have. I know. Oh, it's 100% intended to be. And
That's so completely geeky.
Yes.
And it was entirely Isaac Newton. He invented the dot notation.
Nice.
For derivatives.
And the company is V dot what?
labs.
V dot Labs.
But yeah, so that's exactly what we do is we help startups go fast, help them do really hard things very
Accelerate
quickly,
startups.
help accelerate their technical and operational capacity. That's the
Because
goal.
it's not just materials or just the traditional, what we think of as engineering. I'm impressed to learn that engineering in modern times, recent decades, is making stuff work. Systems of systems.
Yes. Oh, I nerd out on that so much. It's the no, it is. It's so good. It's so good. It's my favorite thing.
Hey, get a room.
Sorry, it's like I was like, ooh, the systems of the systems.
Systems of systems.
Yeah.
I could play it on a loop.
Let me tell you about those systems, y'all.
We hit the spot right there.
Yes, you did. No, it's people look at some of these like incredibly. So I study high performing organizations, and I'm in the process of writing a book on this, looking at what are the trends and things that we can see between organizations that build hardware, and what is the algorithm around that. And I think a lot of companies they're constantly in search for it. They're always looking for this. And it's not simply like how good are your processes and how good your engineers are. It's the way in which you structure and build the organization to remove as many barriers from execution as you can.
So are you to space companies what McKinsey is to sort of ordinary corporations, where the corporation doesn't have the internal expertise to how to run their business better, and so they go to a consulting company that says fire these people, hire those people, and accelerate your progress? Is that what you are for space companies?
In some ways. And what we like to do is get like very much embedded with the organization, because my team and the folks that work with me are people who have been boots on the ground. They're not, career consultants who've only kind of looked at it from the top and say,
Right. They just got out of the Harvard Business School.
Right. Nothing against that. Love HBS.
Okay.
But it's people who were in those roles.
But just to be clear, the rowing team for Harvard Business School at the tip of their oars is a $sign.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Just they don't.
Is this real?
Yes, it is real.
Oh my.
Wow.
Yeah, that's their. Others just have like colors for the flag of their school, or there's a $sign.
I mean, it's not inaccurate, like in terms of what happens.
Does it make the boat
with
go faster?
I don't know.
The
the
water
record
say,
is-
"Hey, I love scooping off with $signs." But anyhow, yeah. I mean, if I like your reference to boots on the ground. That's an important reality.
Yeah.
That brings a certain level of trust.
Yes. And to be able to see a problem and to go, oh my God, I've lived through this. I feel like so many times I work with these companies, I go, oh, there was that one time, let me tell you, we did this, and here's what we did, and here's how we got through it. Because I feel like there's so much tribal knowledge in this space, and it pains me. This work is so important that we're doing in order to accelerate humanity's future in space. I don't think we can afford to be treating everything like, don't look at it, don't look at it, it's mine.
Otherwise, you all go off the cliff together.
Exactly.
Right,
And people
'cause
are.
you knew something that they didn't.
Exactly.
They needed to know so they didn't fail.
And just like repeating the same mistakes over and over again. And frankly, if like your success hinges on, someone else just making a mistake, I don't know if that's like true. And so how my goal and my passion with this industry is to be like, how can I sort of bridge those gaps? How can I remove those barriers, those tribal knowledge blocks, and help others just leapfrog the stupid stuff?
So,
okay?
So in order for you to be really effective, typically you're working with a smaller company.
Yes.
Because smaller companies are more nimble than big companies.
They are. They tend to be like more hungry for change.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The change factor.
Yes.
Because big companies, they don't want change.
Yeah.
And even if they do, it's like, it's hard. Yeah. It's really hard. But I think also what you see is there's now existence proof.
It's hard.
It's difficult. I've been in those companies. But now there's existence proof. You can look at a SpaceX.
Like, tell Chuck what an existence proof is.
Like, it's there. Like, we don't have to imagine a world where there's a company called SpaceX.
But it's okay.
That
No. you don't have to figure out whether it is true or can happen.
Yes.
If there's an example of it having already happened.
There. Right.
So
We did it.
in math, it's actually an existence proof.
Oh.
It comes from math.
Okay.
An existence proof. Here's the thing. Are you trying to prove that this can happen? I already know
already did it.
It's right
Right,
there.
exactly.
It's not that I did it. It's there.
Yes.
All right.
Well, how could it be there if you didn't do it?
Because someone else did.
And you asked me about Europe and like France, right?
Yeah.
What is so interesting is Europe is about 10 to 15 years behind the U.S. in terms of like commercial space. And so they have this opportunity now that there's existence proof. They're like, wow, it's been done. What are we going to do?
Now bring an American over to show them how to do it.
Not so much, but just bring some of those lessons learned and what is it? It's going to look different there because it's an inherently different ecosystem. But it is fascinating because it is ripe, it's brand new, it's fresh.
So you're going where the opportunities are.
There's a lot of opportunity there.
Wow.
There's a lot of opportunity.
Wow. That sounds really exciting.
We got to report back.
Good for you.
I shall.
Yeah.
We got to come back and find out what. We got to see how your predictions are going.
Right.
The decadal predictions for the O'Neill cylinder.
Yes.
All right. This has been another episode of StarTalk with a little bit of cosmic queries sprinkled in.
Yeah.
On the future of commercial space with Lauren Lyons. And like I said, Lauren, we take our invitation seriously. You can check back in with us. We want to know what changes you are wreaking upon the world.
Yes.
At Chuck.
And if France starts to beat us in the space race, we are going to blame you.
All one team. We are all one team.
There it is. There it is.
Transatlantic cooperation.
There you go. All right, Chuck, always good to have you, man.
Always a pleasure.
All right, this has been StarTalk. Neil deGrasse Tyson here, your personal astrophysicist. As always, keep looking up.